welcome everybody, and we have a nice list of people on Zoom who are connected to us. This is an artist talk. I'm so pleased and honored to be with Dianne McIntyre. Some of you know very well. Her company members, can you raise your hand just so people know who's in the room, as well as her support staff and musicians. Thank you so much. We have graduate students, people connected to the dance program, and community members with us as well. And so happy that Zoom can actually happen.
This will,
Allie said it's okay.
okay.
We just keep us social distance.
We have our social.
Okay. So many of you know Dianne McIntyre's very long, extensive history in dance and her present, current, vital work that she does. She's maintained her company in different manifestations since 1979, and she's making new work that will tour. So we have a lot of area to cover, and as I was putting together questions and thinking about things, I said we need this to be a weekly series. Like this week with Dianne, you know, we could cover one topic. This week with Dianne, another topic. Dianne works in, if you're not familiar, not only concert dance in what we might call modern, postmodern genre, but also film and Broadway. She choreographed Beloved and
Miss Evers Boys.
Miss Evers Boys and many other places where you've seen dance and movement. And if you're not familiar with Ntozake Shange's book published posthumously, it's Dance We Do, A Poet Explores Black Dance. And one of the very first chapters is Dianne McIntyre chapter. It's a beautiful book. And Ntozake, or if I could call her that, interviews choreographers and dancers. And so she actually, you know, we think of it the other way, that we would be curious about Ntozake Shange, but she talks about Dianne McIntyre's life as one of the first dance company, first formal dance company she danced in, and how the company situated in New York was a safe place. And she said, I knew I was where I belong. And that's one of the things I think coming into contact. I was texting Marlise this morning, and people have that sense of coming home and belonging. So for my first maybe area, because I know once we get to New York, it's on. But you have relocated to Cleveland, to Ohio, your home, where you're born and where you started dancing and your first training. And you talk about your first dance teacher, Elaine
Gibbs Redmond.
Gibbs Redmond,
yes.
And how she was the teacher for black students. Because of segregation, you wouldn't have been invited or eligible to go to another school. And now you're returning home, and I think when your work premieres, that's on the calendar for it to your new work to be there. So can you tell us a little bit about the meaning of Cleveland for you now, and maybe Cleveland, Ohio for you then?
Okay, so I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. It's a place that arts can be really nourishing for young people and for children and for young adults. In Cleveland, when you grow up, it's not strange to want to be an artist. I say that because when I did go to New York after growing up in Cleveland, I met a lot of people who were ostracized or even put down because they want to be an artist. The people said, oh, that's your hobby? But in Cleveland, even my father, who was born in 1914, he had friends who were artists. So it was a great place to be nourished. I had my dance teacher, Elaine Gibbs Redmond, where I learned ballet and other really refined dance traditions. And I also, from a young age, maybe 9 years old or so, I also had a teacher named Virginia Driansky. I studied with both. Virginia was part of the Caramel Dancers. Now, Caramel is the oldest ongoing theater complex in the black tradition.
And it's still working today.
Yes, it started in 1915. So Virginia She was a Caucasian dancer. She was one of the few non-black dancers at Carmel. So she was my teacher when I was 9. She was my after-school dance teacher. So that's where I was introduced to modern dance. It's very rare where a child will learn modern dance. Even today, you usually have to get it in the college and universities.
Yeah, that's the experience we have here.
Yes, I don't think it's still going on. So from those 2 women, I got a good foundation in dance. And Virginia was in that early 60s, late 50s, and we did, I'm telling you, like when we were 9 years old, we were doing dances like Odetta. Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. We were doing that when we were little children. So we were doing, so I guess it was instilled with me, do some type of revolutionary, do some black consciousness moves as a child, okay? And that was my Cleveland. Then I went to Ohio State as a dance major. I stayed in Ohio. And then we had many guest artists. 2 of the guest artists there really helped a lot with me understanding the dance and music connection. And then I taught, you don't know this probably, but I taught for a year at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. They had a fledgling dance department, and they invited me there to work with the students. Very fine department. And then there I realized I wanted to actually have more training, I said, and there were some things in Milwaukee that were challenging for me. So I said, if I can survive Milwaukee, I can survive New York City. So I went to New York to study, and I studied. So that was my transition, how I got there.
So Dianne, there's something, and I'm taking this from Ntozake
Shange
chapter,
yeah.
is that you talk about, she asked you when you knew you had to dance and you had to choreograph. So now we're getting to New York. I mean, that's a different commitment when you say, I'm going to go there and begin this journey. And what was it? Is there any kind of turning point either before getting to New York or being in New York where you knew? Because to me, it sounds like a destiny.
Yeah.
The way that you talk about it, it sounds like you knew that this was your destiny and that you would completely commit yourself to it, with no compromises. Which is what, the way you have really exemplified your life.
Well, I did skip a part in telling my growing up years. I started choreographing formally when I was 7. Okay. So the thing is, I always loved choreographing. I love dancing, but when I was 7, I put together a production. Maybe it was more like a dance drama, or there's a words for it now, but it had some words in it, like what we're doing now. It had some words in it, and it had a lot of dancing. And my best friend, her sister was a pianist, so I engaged her as if I was the producer, and I did it all. And then we did it at our local library, and somebody printed up tickets for it. I think my mother, and so it was so I always knew. So then when I went to Ohio State as a dance major, through high school I choreographed, different productions and all like that. But when I got to Ohio State, I said, now is the test. I'm actually going to composition class. And then I get more advanced to where you do group choreography. And that's where I would find if I actually had a gift for it, or I just had a love for choreographing. And then when I was at Ohio State, which we both have the history at OSU.
Yes, we are both Buckeyes.
We're both Buckeyes.
As is.
Yeah, as is
Courtney?
No, Brianna
Brianna's
Rose.
is a
Yes,
Buckeye.
also from
Ohio
OSU. So and Natalie too.
Oh, Natalie, that's
Gilbert.
right, over there in the
Yes,
corner.
here we go.
Accompany us.
Yes, Ohio. Yay, Ohio. So when I was there, I was actually nurtured as a choreographer. And I had one professor, James Payton, when I was doing my first group choreography. And I'll never forget, after the first part of what I was showing, he told me something like, really, I haven't really don't have too much really to tell you. He said, because in a way he was saying that I was beyond his choreographic eye. He was my professor. He said, you got it. The only thing he did give me advice, but one thing he told me was, remember that nobody is indispensable. As you move forward, nobody is indispensable of the dancers you're working with. If you have to shift to someone else, I always remember that. And another thing, I was trying to decide on what kind of music. We were in a studio trying to figure this composition or that recording or this. I'm like, oh, I can't decide, Mr. Payton. I can't decide. He said, there's a war going on in Vietnam. And I'm just like doing this little petty thing. Like, wonder what music to use like, get it together. Those things I got from him. So I think I knew from then, when I was in the university. Yes, I knew as a child I loved choreographing, but from then it's like, this is what I do. Did that answer the question?
That answered the question. Answered the question.
And I've been a big fan of hers too, folks.
Oh. And there's something, one of the type of artists that I'm most drawn to are not only choreographers and dancers, but also teachers. Mm-hmm. And many people choreograph, but they don't really pass that on through either teaching choreography and teaching dance. And you taught a master class here Tuesday, and there's another one on Thursday, or what we call a master class. But it and I was sort of witnessing how it really is a body-to-body interaction. I mean, there are words used, but there's a great deal of demonstration, gesture, and that it has to come through your body. And these are strangers. You haven't really met them. So that you teach what you have learned and what you've absorbed, but you also reflect on and respect your own teachers is something that that's a gift to us, especially those of us who commit to the artistry, the performance, but also the teaching and the pedagogy and being in the dance class and nurturing young people, and maybe not so, not always young people, but nurturing people who want to come along for the journey. So get us or take us a little bit into the journey, how you told me that your people on Zoom can't see the top of this, but it says Dianne McIntyre, 50 years of dance making, 1972 to 2020. And that 1972, you told me, was a concert. It wasn't, you didn't sit down or on paper or say, I'm going to make a company. But you started out as a concert, and I want to know about that transition. How does someone who puts on a production as a concert conceive of your work as a company and the meaning that holds for you?
Okay, it was kind of more logistics. So what happened is that I had a concert, and I was very much supported by Louise Roberts, and Louise Roberts was the director of Clark Center of the Performing Arts, a very important center in New York City. They nurtured artists and they produced concerts. So I decided I wanted to choreograph something with a group. So Louise said, well, have auditions. She just put up a notice and have auditions at Clark Center. I said, but why would people come to my audition? They don't know me. I'm brand new. I haven't done anything. She said, put up the notice and people will come. She said, because people are hungry to dance. Okay? She said, put up if it's for free or if you have any money and how long the rehearsal, and if you have an exact date, you'll perform. So anyway, I did that and people came to the audition. Whoa-wee. They actually came, like she said. And the other thing is that I had musicians at the audition. So I had to see if the people could connect with the music to work with what I had in mind. So I shared the concert with another artist he had a longer career in dance. We called the event Sounds in Motion.
And is that because of your connection with music and your love for music?
Yes, and also I had read a book by a Sufi master.
Oh.
And before I had this concert. and it was the Sufi message of music by Hazrat
Inayat Khan,
Khan.
and he
Yes,
wrote The Music of Life.
yes.
That's one of the.
It's
That's
one
right
of
next
the-
to my Intozaki books and you. We're like really on the stream.
We're on the
A
stream.
lot of people haven't read that. Yep.
So when I read that book, there was a line that said, "Dance is music moving." I said, "That's what I feel." And so then I said, "Oh, let's make this concert. Let's call it Sounds in Motion." The other artist was fine with that title. So we shared. I didn't have enough for a whole evening. So we did the concert. It worked very well. We had some improvisational section, and we had some set dances, and we had one piece that was completely improvised. That's a different story. Because it wasn't. No, some recorded.
So she asked, was it all live music?
No,
Yes.
some was recorded, and our finale piece was with 4 musicians and 4 dancers. Myself, Bill Donald, Dorian Williams, and Bernadine Jennings. We were the 4 dancers who had the chops to improvise. There were other dancers on the concert, and they were in other pieces. So we did that piece. It worked. The whole evening was really, people just loved it. We were at a place called the Cubiculo, which was a square box, about not maybe the size of this room. They did theater and dance based on 51st and 51st between 8th and 9th in New York City. So the thing, after I did the concert, some people said, "Whoa, that was really nice. You should keep on going." They said, "You should start a company." I said, "Really? Why?" They said, "Because you could get money to keep on going. If you are," I'm telling you, it was
That's
logistics.
what you meant by logistics.
It wasn't like, "Oh my goodness, I have to have a company." So they said, logistically, you could get money if you have a nonprofit organization, and then you could get supported to pay people. You could pay the dancers. You could pay a place to rehearse. And so what I did, I went to a man who is the head of the Association of Modern Dance Companies, Adam Pinsker. And you remember Adam Pinsker? You do, because you're from the National Endowment for the Arts. Yvonne over there, she helped support me too. Okay? So my very first grant was from the National Endowment for the Arts, because I was teaching in Harlem. And there was a segment of the National Endowment for the Arts that helped support artists who were in a community or in, I guess, a tribal nation or something like that, people of color. And so I got money from them because I was teaching in Harlem. So I'm getting ahead of myself. But that was part of it. So I got some people together, the Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. Adam Pinsker said, go to them. They'll write up your nonprofit. And 2 of my friends who I knew in college became my board. And one was becoming a lawyer for NBC. They were young people just starting out. And then another person was, she was working for PBS. But she was just out of college. That was a time like this. They were hiring black people.
It's still a unique event. That's why you have to say it like that, because it was a very unique time.
There was
and it's a unique thing to happen.
It's come around again.
It's secular.
It's secular. So the thing is, it's secular, so it didn't continue. That's what I'm telling you. It's secular. So then that's what it was. Then I had my next concert in June of that year. My first concert was Sounds in Motion, March 28th and 29th, 1972. This is almost the 50th anniversary as we're making this interview right now. And I have a list of the people. I hope if I have time, I'll say the dancers' names.
Please do.
And also, after we had our next concert, we weren't quite have this 501c3 yet, but I could tell the people almost after we finished that first concert when our next one would be. So over the couple of years as I was developing, one of the things I always like to do before we finish this particular concert, or if we were with other people on a festival or whatever, I figured out how I could tell them the next time we would be together performing. Sometimes it was, oh, somebody's having a family reunion on Long Island and they want something, people to dance. So, okay, folks, the next time, today is June, so in September or so, keep your calendars open because we're going to perform again. So it was like that. And then I became absorbed in the fact that these people I'm working with them over and over again, we were creating the style that was Sounds in Motion. So that style is why people often come together over and over again in a company, because the people become nurtured in that style. And so that's how I got to that.
And I notice your dancers, many of them, they work with you over a long period of time, they maintain a relationship, and many of them become creatives on their own as well.
Yes.
So during this time, where does the studio fit in?
Okay.
Because that's a big step, like real estate, space, a commitment to space, and also it's a place where other people know this is happening at Dianne's studio. We know where rehearsal is. It's at our, our studio. So how does actually making and claiming and committing to and developing the space, the studio, happen? It's almost unheard of now, especially after 9/11. Many of the people who had studios were, sort of, it's a dance, dance centers exist, but choreographers who had studios, Alyssa Monte, I mean, we used to go from people's studio to studio.
Yes. It's shifted. A lot of things have shifted, even in people having companies. It shifted. That was a time. It was a thing to do. It was just, that was that era. People like, oh, so-and-so has a company, da-da-da, company. It was a period like that. And it wasn't hard to start it. It wasn't hard to get a 501c3. That was the way it was done at that time. And things have shifted over time, which is okay. Now the thing is, but you have to rehearse. So at Clark Center, Louise Roberts said, you can rehearse here until you get some money. She said, you can rehearse here for free until you start making some money or getting grants. So we rehearsed there. She gave us the space. I call her my first mentor mother. Okay, she really pushed me, and we performed at Clark Center too. So then I said, let me see where I'm going to rehearse. So I found a place called an organization called the Ministerial Interfaith Association, based in Harlem. I can't remember how I knew, from a church where I was down right on the street that I lived on Convent Avenue. And he said, oh, we have a space for you. We have a space. We only have meetings with all the Harlem ministers once a week on Thursday morning. And you can have the space all the rest of the time. He said, you just keep it nice and neat. I'm like, whoa. So that's what we did. We just took over that space, except on Thursday morning. But usually, because the people who worked with me, they had some of them had jobs in the daytime. So we really started up maybe about 4 or something in the evening. So that we did that for a while. Then there were some people so helpful for me. There was Mickey Shepard. She was one of my first managers, and she connected me with the person at the Studio Museum in Harlem. And they invited me to be the resident company in the Studio Museum in Harlem. Not where it is right now.
Okay.
It's where the National Black Theater is now, which is being rebuilt. Okay. So we rehearsed there for a few years. We were in the space of the museum. We were, I was affected by what was on the wall, by what the art was, my creativity. And so I taught classes, and Bernadine Jennings taught classes. Mickey Davidson taught the children's classes. She was here this weekend. Yes, we were teaching classes, and Bill Donald, I told, was my first company. So anyway, so then at 10 o'clock, before 10 o'clock, I didn't know I'm going to tell these logistical things, but maybe they're interesting for people. But anyway, at 10 o'clock at night, we had to leave because it was time. The security people were closing up. So I said, oh, like a little child. I'm like, oh, I want my own space. I don't want to have to leave at 10 o'clock. If I want to be here at 12:30 a.m., I want to be at 12:30 a.m. So it's something like that. That's what made me find my own studio. So, so we looked around. Damon Wright, he was also a brilliant manager after Mickey Shepard, but Mickey always has stayed helping me over the years. So Damon and I went looking all over New York in that Chelsea area, where a lot of other studios were, and then we came around back to Harlem where I was living, and I came to a place on 125th and Lenox, and we walked up the stairs and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I said, we're looking for a space for my dance company. He said, really? He said, are you Alvin Ailey or something? I'm like, he said, because the upper floor is just totally free. And it was a huge space, the upper floor. So we looked there first. I said, oh, yeah, because this building's called 290 Lenox, a very huge building on the corner of 125th and Lenox. But there was another space on the second floor. I said, I like this one. And it was an insurance company, which was no longer that. And so I hired some people to renovate it, and that became our home. Across the hall was our office. And the way we could have afforded that was because through we were part of a program called the National Endowment for the Arts Dance Touring Program. What it did, it's like the NEFA program. It helped subsidize presenters who wanted your dance. They would get so much money to help present you and give residencies. So one of the people in my company, Lynetta Gaines, who then went on to dance with Elio, she continued with me as our booking manager. And so we got bookings all around the country, a lot of HBCUs. We're in the Midwest. Our first residency was at Swarthmore. We were just every place. And the thing is, it was challenging because we were about 7 dancers and 4 musicians.
That was going to be my question. It's
Yeah.
about musicians and live music and working with not only in performance but in class and in development, working with live music. That's
Yeah.
your commitment, is to tour
Yeah.
also with your musicians, with your band.
Oh yeah, they're not my band.
Okay,
They're
excuse
all,
me.
that's okay. It's like this group is sounds in motion. It's the whole group.
Okay.
It sounds. No, it is. But it's not like the dance. These are my dancers. These are my musicians. We are all sounds in motion. So because of that money from all of our touring, that's how we could afford to renovate the studio. And the studio became a hub in New York. Yes, in New York City. It became a hub of people, of us rehearsing there, having classes there, and it was also a place, Lynetta had us all over the place. It was all, and Damon Wright was my longest time manager. But the thing about it is that I also got the bug to be a presenter. I said, I got space. And then other people who were with me, like Jawale, Marlise, and the other people who were dancing with me, they came to New York City because they saw something in my work they wanted to connect with. So then I presented them, and also I kind of mentored people who were part of my group. And then I had what's called studio works. I didn't know I was going to talk about these things. I had studio works. So we had performances in the studio. Lights and da-da-da. People were jammed in from another organization who had money. We got bleachers, and people got jammed up in that studio.
And this is still in Harlem.
Yeah, 290 Lenox Avenue.
And I think there's meaning to that, it would have been great, to have the space in Chelsea or to be in Midtown Manhattan, but this is a different a different feeling of who comes uptown, who lives uptown. You're living in Harlem at the time, am I correct?
Yeah, I could walk there.
So having this, creating a space and creating an activity where there isn't one, and making it a destination, it's where people want, or certain people want to come to.
That's right. Well, I just to be honest, there were some. Sometimes there, and the rule for you to do a piece in my space, it had to be daring, and if possible, try to use live music. Okay, you didn't have to use my live music, but the central people were my people who choreographed there. But other people got invited to choreograph there and do their works there too. But the thing is, about the audience, the very few white people came to the concerts. But it wasn't like, oh, there are very few white people here. Because that was our world. It was a world of blackness, okay? Sometimes the concerts had Caucasian dancers in it. However, the people coming there, it wasn't like Harlem now. It was just like that. It was a family thing. Not that the people lived in Harlem. The people came from all over to see the works. And you could, while we were dancing, okay, hardly anybody was here who would. While we were dancing, you could see us from the street. And I don't mean in the concerts, because we put up some curtain, but I meant at night when we had classes and rehearsals. If you were standing at the bus stop across 100, or just walking, the people across the street would sit on their stoop and watch our rehearsals. They didn't have to come inside. So it was really great.
You started to approach this as you talked about some of the former company members,
Yes.
and the way the musicians are integrated into the company, not as a side or a separate accompaniment,
Yeah.
but collaboration is so important to you.
Yes.
Text, poetry, spoken word. I mean, one of the pieces I had, it was the slide was up, is you and Oludara,
Yeah.
that duet. I think I saw it at Aaron Davis Hall. It might have been someplace else,
Uh-huh.
but seeing you work and integrate, people are not just your sort of sidekicks, but they're fully integrated into the work. I see this shared collaborative idea, even when I watch you teach. Can you tell us more about what collaboration means to you, and why is it so important? I mean, you could be, Dianne, the figurehead who choreographs on people, and that's it, but you don't work that way.
Oh, I don't.
I got something
She's
right.
telling me about myself.
I got something right.
Okay, I see. Yes, well, I've had the good fortune to collaborate with quite a number of musicians, composers over the years, and usually we have a central idea, and then it comes together in the studio. The musicians and the dancers are in the studio. We're there together. So the ideas come as I hear the music, and then the music comes as they see the dance. Now the thing is, it's very rare that some choreographers work like this. They have an idea, this is related to the dance. They have an idea or a certain kind of shape, and they ask the dancers to work with that particular shape and idea. It's not modern. People, I think Helen Tamiris, I heard, work like that. So it works over the years. But usually I generate the movement, okay? Once in a while, I'll generate the movement, and somebody might do, I might do like this, but the person who's the dancer might go like this. I'm like, whoa, yeah, I like that better. Do that. So that's the collaborative part, and I feel something from who those dancers are about what I would want to do in the movement. I'll sometimes even be collaborative with a costume designer. They'll come in with an idea like, really? Whoa, we have to use that costume. We have to use. So I like the ideas to just come from every place. But my central collaborations are with the music.
Musicians.
Sometimes my collaborations are with interviews that I do with real people. And this was from 2010. It's called Open the Door, Virginia, where I interviewed people about civil rights in 1950 in Virginia. And then that was my script, and it became dance, music, and the story of Barbara Rose Johns. And she was a teenager in Virginia who stood up to have a better school system, and that her case became part of Brown versus Board of Education. She was 16 years old. And the statue they took down in, I go all over the place, the statue they took down in the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol of Robert E. Lee, representing Virginia, her statue is going to be there in its place. Barbara Rose Johns.
Right.
Yes. So
That has so much meaning for us now, you know?
yes, yes. So that's
Open
part of
the
her
Door,
story.
Virginia.
Open the Door, Virginia. We did that in 2006, and then we did it again in the school where she was in 2009 or 2010. So those, I'll collaborate that way too. Then sometimes you collaborate with the ancestors. I think always. Yeah.
Say just a little bit more about that. I didn't prep her for that question. You said we
Okay.
collaborate with the ancestors.
Okay, so sometimes I didn't get a chance.
Take notes, take
So
notes.
I didn't get a chance so much to do it here because of the COVID and how you know, our entrance here. Usually when I'm going into a new space, I like to stand in the space, a theater or a new rehearsal space, and feel it and give a thanks to the ancestors there. We did it, but I didn't do it on my own. And so that I have a feeling of the space and ask them to give support. So one time we were there was a piece called, and I can't forget to say the people's name. There was a piece we did, there was 651 Arts. They developed an evening called Fly, Five First Ladies of Dance.
I have that upstairs. I have the program upstairs. I got everything.
Wow. So it was myself, Jermaine Akogny, Carmen de Lavalade, Jawale Willa Jo Zoller, and B.B. Miller. So each of us had a solo on this concert, and we started in New York City. We did it in several other places. We were in 2010, we were at NJPAC, and I think Baraka Saleh was the person who greeted us, and Stephanie Hewley. They were both there. And they told us, somehow in their greeting, they told us that it had recently been found out that where NJPAC is on an ancestral burial ground of the indigenous people of that area. This was before people were giving the land acknowledgments. It was in 2010. So, and they said there's something out front that they were going to place there as that acknowledgement, but I can't remember if it had been done or not. So we're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And Jermaine, when she heard, Jermaine Akogny is from Senegal. She has her whole complex there with her dance that she develops there and teaches. When she heard that, she created a prayer for the ancestors and for all of us being there in our offering. So that night when I did my solo, toward the end of the solo, I was just filled. It was like I was just, my feet were going throughout. Everything was like it was like not, it was like effortless in a way. I wasn't just dancing myself. Then at the end, when everything finished, I just broke down and cried. I said, the ancestors, they were dancing me. I'll never forget it. I would have felt that had they not told us that story. You know, so they're present. And sometimes I'll go in a studio that's not, that I can feel, it's an old place, and I could feel the dance, the music, the singing, that has taken place. Our building, which I have it too, which was like an insurance company, later I found out, oh, there had been a piano studio here. And Romare Bearden, a person I have the great honor to have met through Alvin Ailey, that's a different story. Okay? Because he did sets and costumes for one of my works. He was very, Romare Bearden was very supportive of my work. And the book by Mary Schmidt Campbell about Romare Bearden, one of our great world artists, I won't say American, world historical artists and present day. That she has a quote from me on the back of the book. The thing is that when Romare came to the studio, he said, oh, this is where your studio is? He said, I took WPA arts classes on the top floor of your building. So then I found out that when I walked in there, the arts were just, they were in the atmosphere. They were in the atmosphere, so it was the right place.
Okay. So we have about a little less than 15 minutes. Things that are priority is that you say the names of the list, and then we have a few minutes for questions.
That's from Their Eyes Were Watching God.
So I just had to move because I knew when you pick one of the images, that's from Their Eyes Were Watching God.
Yeah. Woody King Jr., one of our great theater producers. You know Woody. Okay, he got support, I know, from Expansion Arts also. So Woody King, one day he said to me, Dianne, you know, some people don't understand modern dance. You know, they just like, oh yeah, I think it's interesting, but He said, if you did a piece that was based on, if you used the title of a book that you really like, it would really absorb people into the piece. They say, oh, modern dance can be like this too. So he said, choose one of your favorite books. That's what I chose. And he said, you can even make it abstract if you want, but use the title. It'll get people there. But I end up doing the whole thing. I end up actually interpreting the whole book. And this is the part with Janie. I played Janie. That's me over there. And I guess at the time I was about the age of Janie and Zora. Zora was like Janie because she was like older, but she didn't act it. You all didn't react to that. They didn't know Zora that well. Okay, you all got to find out about Zora. So, and Charles Wallace, who's playing the guitar, he played Tea Cake. And when we first did it at this place called Jam, just above Midtown, downtown. It was an art gallery where we did it. When Charles walked in, there were some students there, maybe they're college students. When he walked in, made his entrance, they're like, ooh, tea cake, ooh, tea. So the book was in them. So that was fun. So what I wanted to do is mention the names of people.
Have your notebook.
Yeah. And then what do we do after that? Oh, you asked me some good questions.
Thank
That's
you.
what I mean. What I was telling you about, the recording thing that I would never just off the bat think of talking about. Okay. But something I didn't answer. Why I got back to Cleveland because I got there. I came back in 2003. I came back to Cleveland in 2003 to help my parents. At the time, they were not ill, but they weren't getting around too well, and they were in the house without regular support. There was a lady who came in and helped them and all. So I was there to help them out, and at the same time, I was still doing events in different parts of the country, and my sister would cover me when I'm not there because she lives in Cleveland. And then my parents, I didn't mention them. Oh my goodness, they were so supportive of me over the years. One time I had the studio works with the company. Usually I was producing other people. That's Lacine Wedderburn. She's on the Zoom.
And so is my mother.
Really? Oh, great.
I saw my mother.
This is a piece I did called Take Off, and Damon Poozer. And that was Lois Greenfield's very famous photographer for dance. This was a piece I based on my mother's life, and my mother was an aviator.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing that this image comes up when you're saying.
That's
I
right.
didn't know that. I didn't know the connection between this piece and your mother as an aviator.
Right, and the other connection, oh, so many connections. The costumes for this piece were by Willie Smith.
All right.
Willie Smith, young people, he was one of the first really well-known black fashion designers.
Mm-hmm.
He did costumes for 3 of my works. I want to tell you the people who have been the most ongoing people in my company and also part of Sounds in Motion over the years. Early days mostly. Bernadine Jennings, who's an author also. Dorian Williams, Bill Donald, Ahmed Abdullah, musician, Mickey Davidson, who is here this weekend, Babafumi Akunyan, brilliant drummer, Steve Solder. Yeah, that was Oliver's piece called 100% Cotton. There's Mickey and Sheila.
Steve Solder, I think, is up in this one if you turn around.
Yes, that's Dorian Williams and Philip Bond, longtime members of Sounds in Motion, and that's Gwendolyn Nelson Fleming. They're over there, and her hair is like Brianna's. And Aye is the trumpet player, Baba Fumi, and Steve Solder is on the trap drum. But you can't see him, and he also took a lot of photos. He also took a lot of our photos.
Yeah, I noticed that.
This is one of my earlier pieces called Union. It was supposed to be called Union for the Streets, but we actually never did it on the streets. But we did do street dances. Right, Yvonne? Called Dance Mobile. Yes, you did. Oh my goodness, so much history.
Go back to the list.
Go back to the list. Okay.
I told you we need this week with Dianne. We had to set up a series.
Philip Bond, Al D. Lewis, who is also a tap dancer. Francine Piggott. And Leon Brown. Fred Davis. Alicia Adams. Alicia is part of she's an official at the Kennedy Center. Yes. Cheryl Banks, now Cheryl Banks Smith. Kathleen Sumler. Lacine Wedderburn. Damon Poozer. Jill Barganetti. Damon Wright, who was my manager for a long time. I said Mickey Shepard. Shireen Dixon.
Oh.
Oh, yeah,
that's
Shireen.
right. Oh, that's right. We talked about
Yeah.
that. That's right. We had a.
Yeah.
That's right. She told. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Robin Wilson. Jawale Willa Joe Zoller. Marlise Yearby. Like I said, Mickey Shepard, Damon Wright, Louise Roberts, Gus Solomons Jr. I danced with him when I was first in New York for 3 or more years. He was a great mentor to me. Elaine Gibbs, Richard Davis at George Mason University. He's my producer father, even though he's younger than me. He's the one who helped me with these works that are interviews I do. They call them, there's a word for it. I didn't know.
Ethnography?
No, it's when you create works, you create a play out of real words. You should know, Adam. Devised. They call it devised theater, but I didn't know that name at the time. The NEA, NISCA, New York City Cultural Center, all those people, and New York Foundation for the Arts, and something called CAPS. I received my first grant from them. Then the dancers who are here with me, and the dancers and musicians here, Demita Hopkins, Courtney Ross, Shaquille Charles, Brianna Rhodes, Gerald Brazell, Bill Easley, who's not right in the room this night, but he's playing John Hanks. Oh, there's a picture?
I got the picture.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, Dianne,
I
I
did
did it. I hooked it up.
Oh, there's everybody.
Yes, there's everybody.
That's everybody in this residency here. They're doing a fabulous job. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. And did I say everybody? Because I jumped on Esther Berman. What, Esther?
Esther's taking a picture, I think.
Okay.
That's what I assumed.
Esther is our stage manager. And Adam is our project manager, and he's with Octopus Theatricals that's helping produce the work as we go to different locations to develop the piece. and they're supporting in our, and also, since I have this list, I want a big thank you to Dr. Thomas de France, who pushed for us being here. Of course, to Andrea Woods Valdés, and also to John Brown, the provost here, who's really made all of this happen, even with changes happening in the administration, and Georgiana Pickett, who was a consultant who helped me with this. And there are many, many, many other dancers and musicians over the years, many, a whole bunch. But those are some of, and if any of you are on the line and I didn't say your name, I'm really sorry. Because they're more.
That will have to be next week.
That'll be next week.
This week with Dianne.
Those are the more earlier people.
We're at time if you're dealing with time in a linear kind of way.
Yeah.
But I would like to take at least one question, and that can be from anybody. So get that hand up. Yvonne Coleman. She was ready.
Well, yes.
I think people can hear you, but I'm just going to give you this because of the
During
Zoom.
During the times in which you and so many others were creating up in Harlem School for the Arts was rocking. Barbara and Tier hadn't quite moved north, but then she decided to move her company up. You know, everybody else went downtown, she said going uptown.
Roger Furman.
Right. So I'm curious about the interaction with those other organizations, known people during the time. Now, I could ask you about your International Black Dance people, you know, your work with Joan Myers Brown and Dayton and all of that. But I'm curious about the time when you were there and there were such strong institutions.
Yes.
And what kind of interaction did you all have as a community of Black, in some cases brown? I mean, Tina was you know, Valdés Hispanico was, you know,
over in the east.
And, yeah, so what was it like with all of that leadership that also was creative leadership?
That is a wonderful question. Very rarely asked, because all of us were buddies. We helped push each other. We gave each other ideas. Barbara Ann Tier, she became one of my very good friends. National Black Theater. Roger Furman had the New Heritage Theater.
Right.
He was a Renaissance man. He did everything. He wrote, he did the sets, he did the costumes, he did and he brought in brilliant playwrights. And we encouraged him to come into our building. That big space on the top floor, where the man said, "Are you Alvin Ailey?" Well, it became Roger Furman's New Federal Theater.
That's right.
Roger started bringing in artists, and Vosa Rivers, his manager, they started bringing in artists from South Africa. This was still during apartheid. They were bringing in plays from, I don't know how they did it. They were doing it up there, probably with help with National Endowment for the Arts. And these plays also end up being like, we were looking out, and we became friends with the you know, they were all males, so they start coming to our studio and We were all connected, and we'd see limousines outside. We're like, what are those limousines? We're looking out the window. They're coming upstairs to Roger Furman to see the South Africa. He did that before what the thing that went on Broadway. So then and then across the street, we were already connected with the Studio Museum. And then across the street, then there's the Fashion Institute, the Black Fashion Institute. We would have meetings to see what ideas do you have. Tourism is coming to Harlem. Are you prepared for that? We would have meetings all together. We were like pollinating. We were like one, like that. The person across the street from us.
Was it the Lennox Lounge?
No, the Lennox Lounge was next door.
Oh, wow.
The Lennox Lounge was not like one of the arts organizations.
Mm-hmm.
The Lennox Lounge was a club,
Right.
which is no longer there.
Right.
So
But
pretty.
It was in that.
It was next door to my building. My building. I can't tell you on Zoom about things about the ownership of the building. No, that would be, I'll get in trouble for that. But that was but we were all friends and gave each other ideas. Olatunji was in the building right next to Barbara and Tier.
That's right.
Yes, and but the person across the street, and he's originally from Cleveland too. Then there was over voices of maybe just called Voices. They were at the church on 137th in St. Nicholas. Yeah, it was. We were all connected. Yes, in a very good way. If something was happening to somebody, you need to go rally over there because so and so needs help. The dance, the music, the visual arts. Yes.
So it's so hard to, we don't have to stop, we just have to sort of end this session together. And I think there's a lot to be said for this kind of connecting and community building, and we're more connected than ever because of social media, but we're disconnected in a lot of ways in that we really don't even know our neighbors.
Yes.
So,
Did I say Georgiana Pickett?
you did,
Okay.
you thanked Georgiana Pickett.
And this piece first started at Baryshnikov Art Center when she invited me there to start working on the piece. That's where we were there for a while, right, Gerald?
Yep.
Yeah, we were over there for a while.
Yep.
Okay.
So on that note, Dianne thanked everybody. I needed to thank the Duke Dance Program, Rubenstein Art Center, staff and administration, the Vice Provost for the Arts at Duke, John V. Brown, and the Duke faculty and the students who have participated, and of course your beautiful company and staff who have just made this it's not over yet. We're still partying until Friday afternoon, and we can't thank you enough, Dianne.
Oh.
Can we give her the, her?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Love you. Love you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was fun.